Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and I was always told I had a voice for radio, so today we are delving back into the standard format of the Pokemon trading card game with some games from Huddersfield Regionals. Now, I have put up 2 league challenges, one from Norwich, one from Sheffield, both in the standard format. I heartily suggest you go and check them out, and I'm going to be uploading a whole bunch of games from Huddersfield Regionals. Links will be in the description of the videos, so make sure you check all of them out, ladies and gentlemen. A couple things you need to know. This was a regionals with about 92 masters, which is very big for the UK, and it might seem like a low amount, but remember, there's about 15 to 20 people who have been to Worlds playing out of those 92. So we're talking a competitive 92. Swiss is 7 rounds. It is 50 minutes, best of 3, and we are in standard format before Breakthrough is legal. So we're talking X and Y to Ancient Origins. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We are in round 7, the last round of Swiss, as it happens, and we have got a lovely match between Matthew Cotton and Ben Pollock. Now, we did unfortunately lose round 6, so there's no round 6 game. We also lost round 4. I do apologise. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes these things happen, technical problems and the such. But 5 out of the 7 rounds of Swiss, not bad. So Ben on the left, he is going to be playing, I believe, that Giratina, Seismitoad, Crawdaunt list. You see he starts with a Corphish and he's got a Seismitoad on the bench, and he's going to be playing against Matthew Cotton's Rayquaza deck. So we see a Trainer's Mail gets an Ultra Ball. The Ultra Ball's going to come down. We presume he gets rid of a Crushing Hammer and a Lysandra, probably getting a Shame in here, one would imagine. Generally at this stage of the game you want to draw cards. Now, this game is very simply going to come down to, can Ben get going? Giratina has a redonkulous advantage over Giratina. Over Rayquaza. Giratina, when it's got 4 energy on 2 coloured, 2 colourless, and it does 100 damage, and it stops your opponent playing Special Energy, Tools, or Stadium the following turn. It's also got an ability that stops it being harmed by Mega EXs, which Rayquaza's gonna want to do. Now, as we saw in round 5, Hex Maniac exists. Matthew can play a Hex Maniac, turning off the ability allowing him to hit Giratina. But if Matthew doesn't have a Skyfield down, Rayquaza, and we see a double dragon coming down there on the Giratina. If we don't have a Skyfield, then Rayquaza does 30 damage to all, and an AZ comes down to pick up the Corphish, getting a Seismitoad in the active. Corphish goes straight back down again. That means that Rayquaza can do a maximum of 150 damage, 30 times his 5 bench Pokemon. And if Giratina attacks and puts down a Stadium, no other Stadium can be put down. So we see a double colourless, we see a Spirit Link, we see a Skyfield. Although, the decks I saw from John O'Cowley and Connor Bird, they were actually playing Skyfield. If a Skyfield stays in play, Mega Rayquaza can KO Giratina. That's going to make the game a bit closer. If Ben can attack with Giratina and stop a non-Skyfield supporter coming down, a non-Skyfield Stadium, there's basically no way Matthew can win. Ben sits there doing 100 damage to Giratina every turn, and Matthew just can't KO him. Simple as. He can play the Lysandra to take bench prizes, but it's difficult. So, Matthew here, he gets a second Trainer's Mail. Like I said, he's got the Rayquaza, he's got the double colourless, he's got the Spirit Link, he's got the Skyfield. If he can get 6 bench Pokemon and the Mega, and he can Mega Turbo a basic energy that he needs to get in his discard pile, he can get a KO this turn. Remember that Rayquaza's got the Delta Evolution Ancient trait, which allows him to evolve without ending his turn. On turn 1. And he's got the Spirit Link that allows him to evolve without ending his turn. So he can get that Mega Rayquaza out and attack on the very first turn of the game. He will need a 3rd energy to do so. So we get to Shaman down. He's going to want to get an energy in the discard pile, a Mega Turbo, the Mega Evolution, and 4 more benched Pokemon. It's a lot to ask for, but it's absolutely possible. We see an Ultra Ball coming down here, getting rid of a VS Seeker and another Skyfield. Ideally there, he would want to get rid of a basic energy. Clearly that's not happened. Now, you'll notice that Ben's got that Corphish. Essentially, now Corphish's got the ability, he's going to have his 6 bench Pokemon, if he wants them, because Hooper comes down. Hooper's ability allows you to search for free EX Pokemon. It's a really good ability. And you see he plays one of the Dragon there, which could end up helping him, because the Dragon Giratina, there is a Dragon Giratina, but Matthew's playing the Dragon Rayquaza, and it just works as a non-Mega attacker. So we see the Mega coming down there, and we see the Shaman. Now, you see Ben checking. There's a Battle Compressor. This could happen, ladies and gentlemen. He could get the turn 1 KO. He's going to get rid of a basic energy here, and if he's just got and we see he's got a Hex Maniac there, which he's going to get rid of, so he can VS Seeker for it in future turns. And there we see the basic energy. And it looks like he might just be getting rid of that one basic energy. Obviously, usually you'd want to get rid of more than one, so you can use multiple Mega Turbos. But if Ben starts using Seismitoad, there will be no Mega Turbos coming down. Does he have a Mega Turbo and a 6th benched Pokemon? He has a Juniper. That's what the format we're in at the moment, ladies and gentlemen. He did all of that without playing a supporter. So, he's now gone from a lot to go for. He just has 2 cards he needs. He's got a Trainer's Mail. Can he hit a Mega Turbo from this? No indication yet. If he had it, he probably would have chucked it down. We've got an Ultra Ball, but he can use that Ultra Ball to get a 3rd Shaman. We know he needs a 6th bench Pokemon, so why not get a Shaman? Now, and this is an awful lot to ask for, ideally here, he'd actually like to get a Spirit Link on one of his benched Rayquazas and another Mega Turbo coming down. Now, we actually see a Pineco coming down from Matthew there. That evolves into Forretress, which allows you to put 1 damage counter on all of your opponent's bench Pokemon. It's really, really good for going through Focus Sashes. So something like a Mind Shower where everything's Focus Sash, so you can't get KOs on anything. Because if you try and KO something with a Focus Sash in one go, they go down to 10 HP and lose the Focus Sash. So the Forretress basically puts you not on full HP. And if you're not on full HP, Focus Sash doesn't work. Well, we've now got enough bench Pokemon there from Matthew. 7 bench Pokemon, and he still doesn't look like he's got the Mega Turbo. So we see another Ultra Ball there for Shaman number 4. Good job none of them are prized, which will make bench Pokemon number 8. And here we go. Now that does mean, of course, that there is a possibility that Ben here is just going to be able to play 3 Lysandras to kill 3 Shaman to win the game. But of course, if he's KOing the Shamans, he's not KOing the active Rayquaza that's got all the energy on. That's a very small deck. He's got to hit it sooner or later. Assuming he plays it. If he doesn't, why is he still drawing cards? But you've got to think he's got to hit it from this. If he plays Mega Turbo and doesn't hit it, he can rightly claim bad luck. Because, goodness gracious, by now he should have hit a Mega Turbo. Because otherwise he's just run through his deck and just not done anything. Oh, and he doesn't hit it. If he plays it, that's just bad luck. And this is what I was going to tell you about Ben's deck. The Energy Denial. Corphish, you evolve into Crawdaunt, it discards an energy attached to your opponent's active. Bearing in mind he went first, that Corphish has been down a turn, so he could have used it. He plays Enhanced Hammer. I'm assuming he plays Team Flare Grunt. I'm assuming he plays Zerosic. Now Matthew is going to have that was Matthew's turn to really start making some headway. Now we see a Faded Town going down, so he does have a counter stadium. As I said, the other builds I saw of this had just Skyfield, no counter stadium. Now, if Ben is able to hit a double dragon or a double colourless, and there is the switch, we can basically put this game in the books right now. The game is going to be over. Because all Ben needs to do, he switches into the Giratina, he puts down a double dragon or a double colourless, and that's basically the game. Matthew has no energy on the field. Giratina's attack will stop him playing double colourless, which means it's going to take him forever to get the requisite energy on there. And let's not forget, ladies and gentlemen, that Ben plays all kinds of energy discarding cards, including, the Crawdor. So you put all of that into account. Matthew's not going to be able to get the energy down. We've seen that Matthew plays Hex Maniac, so best case scenario here, he hits a Hex Maniac. He's got 5 bench Pokemon. Rayquaza's attack does 30 times the number of bench you've got, so it maxes out at 100. This is if he gets the free energy and he gets the Hex Maniac. He's limited to 150 damage, which isn't even enough to KO the Giratina. Now, we know he's got the switch. Does he have the energy here? So he plays the switch. Presumably, he thinks he's going to be able to get the energy. Although, to be honest, he doesn't even need to. He can just leave it in the active and go, come at me, bro. Because we've seen how difficult it's going to be for Matthew to get the energy. And there's the double dragon. And this is the beginning of the end. Like I say, I was playing at this tournament. I went for a Aromatisse Giratina. And I played a Rayquaza. I played a very good player playing Rayquaza. And there was just nothing he could do. He can't attack the Giratina. And even if he can, there goes the DCE. Now, he's not trainer locked. So he can go DCE, Mega Turbo, Hex Maniac, and he just scoops. Because even if he goes DCE, Mega Turbo, Hex Maniac, he does 150 and doesn't KO the Giratina. Oh, we saw there were a couple DCE and a Mega Turbo prized. Not good prizes there, quite frankly. But this is... I genuinely believe... Now, I'm going to Sutton Coldfield Regionals this coming weekend. For those of you that are watching it, as this video goes up on YouTube. If you're watching it late, it's in the past. I am not preparing to play Rayquaza. Now, Kirsten Gregory did make top 8 with Rayquaza at this tournament, but you've got to hit good matchups. The two biggest decks, as I record this, the two biggest decks in the UK in standard format at the moment are Night March, which hits Rayquaza for weakness, and they play Hex Maniac so Altaria doesn't save it. And Giratina Seismitoad, which, as we're seeing here, has a massive, massive advantage over Rayquaza. Now, clearly Matthew's done well at this tournament. That's why he's on stream in round 7. And like I say, Kirsten Gregory did make top 8 in this very tournament with Rayquaza. But I just don't think it is... I think it's got really negative matchups against the two biggest decks in the format. And given that you've got all of that, I just don't see how you're going to possibly have... I really don't think... I really don't think there's anything that Rayquaza can do against the two biggest, biggest decks in the format, which makes it a bad choice. Now, bearing in mind, we didn't know that coming into this tournament, but anyone that plays Rayquaza, I'm not going to Sutton Coldfield Regionals this weekend, I'm going to London Regionals this weekend, but anyone that plays Rayquaza at that Regionals gets no sympathy from me. Now, the reason I chuckled a minute ago, I just quickly flicked on my Facebook chat as I was between games here. I got a message from Matthew Cotton himself saying, when you get to round 7, and I'll share with you what he said at the end of the game. So, this is not an auto loss for Matthew. It is a terrible matchup for Matthew. It's not an auto loss for Matthew. He needs to get going quickly. He needs to get a whole bunch of energy on the field. Not DCE. He needs to get a whole bunch of basic energy on the field. He needs to make sure that he's not benching anything that he wants to attack with without a tool, or else he's going to be head ringed. He needs to not attach his DCE because he can pretty much guarantee. We see at least 2 Mega Turbos there, so he did just get unlucky. He needs to make sure that he doesn't put down a DCE, because you cannot assume it's actually going to stay there until the end of the turn. I don't think it's going to stay there till the end of the turn. So I wouldn't put it down at all, unless you're going to Sycamore it, in which case you might as well, just because it's going in the discard pile anyway. He needs to get his Mega Turbos going, preferably on a benched Rayquaza. And he needs to hope. He needs to hope that he can sit there and make sure that he's not... Yeah, I mean, essentially, he needs to hope that Ben doesn't counter his stadium. He needs to get the Skyfield down. He needs to really make a big turn 2 and try and get some KOs, especially on Giratina, before Ben gets going here. But here's the big problem. Even if Ben benches a Giratina, Matthew can either Lysandre it into the active and not hit it because of the ability, or either play a Hex Maniac to turn off the ability, at which stage it's not going to be able to hit it. Oh, sorry, play the Hex Maniac to get rid of the ability, and it's going to be stuck there on the bench. Now here, Ben's best plan would actually be going for Seismitoad. Now we see there was a Rayquaza without a tool. What happened? Headringer. And you should expect it from decks like this. You should expect to be head-ringed if you haven't got a tool. You should expect to lose any special energy that you put down. And we see he had the Enhanced Hammer ready to go just in case. What Ben's going to want here is some kind of switching card, because he started Corphish for the second game in a row, and he's going to want a DCE. What he can essentially do here is just sit, train a lock, and get rid of energy. And while he's doing that, he can set up the Giratina so that if and when the Seismitoad goes down, he can just go, well, that's all right, I'm cool. Because he can just straight away make sure that he's ready to go with a Giratina. And if he can just keep the energy off the Rayquaza and then get, as soon as he goes Giratina with a Faded Town and a any non-Skyfield stadium. But as soon as he gets a Giratina attacking with a Faded Town down, he wins the game, essentially. So we saw the Hooper coming down, he got the Giratina, he got the Shaman. We see a double Dragon energy there. I mean, it wouldn't be the worst play in the world to just stick the double Dragon on the Giratina and leave the Corphish in the active. As we saw in the previous game, it really doesn't matter if Ben gives up prizes. Now, because he's going to end up locking and winning the game. Matthew, even if he goes, I'm just going to Lysandre a bench Pokemon to try and get the, easy prizes that way, he's not going to keep the energy on the Rayquaza long enough to do that. Now, we did see the double Dragon coming down from Ben. He's essentially doing what he did last turn. He's given up on being able to... Oh, and he had a switch in hand. That's interesting. It looks like that's a switch he's just gotten rid of with the Ultra Ball. I would have preferred to go switch into Seismitoad, lock him down early game, but let me make it very clear, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't look... I mean, we got a good look at Matthew's deck last turn. It didn't look... last game. Didn't look like he was playing Enhanced Hammer. So there's a very, very good chance that double Dragon energy isn't going anywhere. So rather than slowing the game down and stopping Matthew getting set up with Seismitoad, he's just gone, you know what? As soon as I get this Giratina out, I've won anyway. So I'm just going to leave him go. Absolute best case scenario here for Matthew. He gets all set up. He gets the energy. He gets a Lysandre. He KOs the Seismitoad. He takes 2 prizes. But then what? That Giratina comes out, Ben gets rid of all of his energy, and we see the whole thing going round again. Now, the fact that he's playing a Birch means that the actual best case scenario now is a KO on that Corphish, and he sits there crossing his fingers, hoping Ben doesn't hit any energy denial. Now, if the Corphish gets KO'd, that means no Crawdaunt next turn getting rid of his energy. We've already seen Ben getting rid of an Enhanced Hammer. But really, I don't like Matthew's chances of keeping his energy here. And just to add insult to injury, he hits Tails on the Birch, just in case he wasn't doing bad enough anyway. And I don't blame him for this. He's soldiering on. He's being the metaphorical trooper here. But you're Matthew. You're playing Rayquaza. What do? Corphish / Enhanced Hammer / whatever else Ben's playing is going to get rid of all your energy. You can only hit Giratina when you play a Hex Maniac. And after you've played a Hex Maniac, you can't replace a stadium if Giratina attacked the previous turn, and if there isn't a Skyfield out, you can't have enough energy. You cannot have enough Pokemon on the field to KO the Giratina. Maybe you can 2-hit KO the Giratina if you can keep your energy on the field, but really, how likely is it that that's going to happen? So Matthew gets a Shaman, he gets a Skyfield, he's got the 6-bench Pokemon, and are you kidding me? It still looks like he's whiffed the Mega Turbo. That's just, at this stage, we know he plays a minimum of 2. We've seen 2 coming down. At this stage, the fact that he hasn't hit the Mega Turbo, I think we can easily say that's pretty bad luck. Now, it looks like his last Shaman might be prized, but he didn't have any Shaman prize last game, so I'm not, I'm not giving him too much sympathy that he's got 1 Shaman prized out of 2 games when he's playing 4. I am giving him sympathy for whiffing the Mega Turbo, though. That's just bad beats. But as we watch this game here, I don't know what you can do. Because, like I say, I played a similar version of this matchup, and I'm sitting there with my opponent, and when I'm playing Pokemon, I like to think, well, what am I scared of? What am I worried that my opponent is going to do? And honestly, when I was playing against Rayquaza, the only thing I could think of is he playing, and I wasn't playing the Seismitoad list, I was playing the Aromatisse list, I'm thinking, is he playing many Enhanced Hammer? Because unless he starts throwing down Xerosic and Enhanced Hammer like confetti, I ain't losing this game. And shockingly enough, that didn't happen. So, we see and that's just cruel. The Corphish didn't get KO'd, the Crawdaunt comes down, he gets to discard an energy attached to the active Pokemon, and he does. And I've said a few times now, Matthew's going to struggle to keep his energy out. That's exactly what's happening. Now, we are going to need to see a switch or a super scoop up from Matthew here. And we see a switch. Giratina comes active, he's got the 4 energy, and this, ladies and gentlemen, now, there is still a chance unless Ben's got a counter stadium. Now, this is the turn. If Matthew's got a DCE and a, Mega Turbo, he can get the KO here. And this is why I was a fan of Ben going Seismitoad rather than the Giratina. Here there is a window for Matthew. Had Ben started attacking with Seismitoad, and he could have done so on the previous turn, he could have got the switch, he had the switch in DCE last turn. Had he gone for, and he's not playing a Hex Maniac, so there's going to be no KO. I should have mentioned he needed a DCE Mega Turbo Hex Maniac, and the chances were slim. Had Ben gone with a Seismitoad, he could have guaranteed there would be no KO, because he gets the Crawdaunt to get rid of the energy, and then there is no Mega Turbo coming down. But as we've seen, there can't be a KO this turn, because there is no Hex Maniac, and Giratina's got that ability. So I think we can fairly assume there is going to be no KO here. That's Team Aqua's hideout. It increases the retreat cost of all Pokemon. I believe it increases the retreat cost by 1 of all Pokemon. It came from that Double Crisis mini set. Here comes a Crushing Hammer, hits a Tails. Matthew very wisely thinking there's no point having it on the active, but if I put a basic energy on the benched Rayquaza, maybe I can get free energy on in one go. Of course, two big downsides to that plan. Giratina stops you attaching tools. That means no Rayquaza Spirit Link. That means no Rayquaza, at least not next turn. And the other big downside is, well, no special energy. And if you want another downside, you ain't getting a Skyfield out. Giratina absolutely wrecks Rayquaza. Now, maybe Matthew can play a VS Seeker, go for a Lysandra, maybe pull up something, maybe a Hooper on the bench, hoping that Ben misses an attack for a turn and that Matthew gets going, but he's just going for the Birch instead. I don't really know what he was hoping for, and, you know, on the one hand, this has not been a terribly competitive game. So you could be thinking, oh, why are you putting up these games that aren't terribly competitive? Well, another way to look at it is, we've got a really good look at how this Seismitoad Giratina Crawdaunt deck list looks. And we've really had a good look at the interaction between Giratina and Rayquaza and found out it is as bad as we feared. It's a really good opportunity, even though we're not seeing a kind of close down-to-the-wire game, as we've seen in previous rounds this tournament. We have got to look at some really interesting things within the current format. And those of you, you know, and there's a lot of people in the US who haven't really played in many standard format games at the moment, because most of the tournaments in the US have been the expanded format. You've got a good look at the expanded format here, and that, ladies and gentlemen, I think is worth having a look at and a discussion of. So Matthew's still going here. He's played a Sacred Ash, get a whole bunch of Pokemon in to train a card that allows you to shuffle 5 Pokemon back into your deck. And he did have the Mega Turbo there, but he's got no Mega Pokemon on which to play it. Which is just sad. Now, we see Team Aqua's hideout there, and Ben pointing out, hang on a second, mate, there's no Skyfield down. You can't play that Shaman because you can't have another bench Pokemon. What he can do, however, is do Rayquaza's attack that does 60 damage for 1 energy. And as it's a non-mega, it can attack. Oh, and that's just rude. We see the Crushing Hammer come down, getting rid of the energy. It's not that viable a strategy because Matthew does 60 damage, Ben does 120. Matthew does 60 damage, Ben gets the KO, when he's only got 120 damage on him. So Matthew is still going. He's trying to figure out what he can do. There's just Birch after Birch coming down here, just trying to find something, trying to get going. Even if he's got a basic energy here, you know, he hasn't got a second one of those Rayquazas, and even if he does, that 60 damage really isn't going to go very far. So, you know, if you're 2-hit KOing while your opponent is... If you're 3-hit KOing while your opponent's 2-hit KOing, you ain't going to win. There was a little bit of a flash out there, guys. Sorry about that. These things happen. I am working with the video I had, and, you know, would you rather not have the games at all? I don't think so. I mean, I'm sorry if that sounds terribly terribly vain of me, but people have told me we like the videos. Now, that Dragon Rayquaza can do 30 damage for a double colourless, and now we have seen the play. I was going to say, we have seen that play from Matthew where he Lysandras to try and buy a turn, but there's nothing, and he scoops. Don't blame Matthew for this game. What the message that Matthew actually sent was, when you get to round 7 on Huddersfield Regionals, I was against an auto loss and got destroyed. And I told him, I'm actually doing that right now. And he replied, yeah, I got dumped on by a deck I didn't know was a thing until that round. What can you do? You can't keep your energy on You can't attack the main attacker, and even when you can, by playing a supporter, you can't get the KO. An interesting game. Thank you, as always, to IQ Gaming for letting us record, to Terry Goodacre for doing the recording, and to Matthew and Ben for agreeing to be on stream. Check out the previous games, links are in the description. Check out the league challenges in the standard format from both Sheffield and from Norwich. And yeah, come back for top 4 very shortly. Thank you very much for watching. Look after yourselves till next time. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.